Hey everyone, my name is Younts. I'm a former active duty Air Force officer and I continue to serve as a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Reserve. As an attorney, I've represented military members throughout the United States and all over the world in court-martials and administrative proceedings. For the first time in my military as well as my professional career, we are facing a challenge. As we head into Veterans Day this week, we have military members from all branches of the service who are challenging what they believe, and I believe, are unconstitutional and unlawful vaccine mandates. Now, as my clients prepare and continue this legal battle, we need your help. We need the help of the American people, as well as Christians, to stand firm against religious discrimination, as well as unjust and unfair treatment. My clients are Navy SEALs, fighter pilots, Marines, soldiers, and members of the United States Coast Guard. Now, there is some good news in this battle. The first piece of good news in this battle is that as of November 2nd, the Air Force's deadline for vaccine mandates, you have over 12,000 members of the United States Air Force, brave airmen, who have said no to this unlawful mandate and are prepared to challenge, for religious reasons and medical reasons, the unlawfulness of this order. As we move forward, we're going to reach deadlines for the other services, so we are at a critical point in our fight. Now, when I tell you we believe this is unjust and unfair treatment of military members, I don't say that lightly. Again, since I volunteered to serve after 9/11, I've never seen the military treating airmen, soldiers, Marines, sailors, and members of the Coast Guard this way. Yet here we are. So why do I say my clients believe this mandate is unconstitutional? It's very simple. Our Constitution, our nation, is founded on the belief in certain God-given inalienable rights. These include life, liberty, and property, or the pursuit of happiness. These vaccine mandates that military members are facing go directly against that. They go directly against the idea of freedom and bodily autonomy. Now, I'm sure some of you have heard legal experts or others on social media or in the mainstream media talking about an old Supreme Court case and saying vaccine mandates are lawful and legal. The case they're talking about is the Jacobson case from 1905, over 100 years ago. And it has nothing to do with these current vaccine mandates because it involved a local ordinance as well as state law. These are federal mandates. So I think it's important that we dispel that. So my clients and I believe these are unconstitutional mandates. To take it a step further, there are other reasons why many believe this is an unlawful order for military members. It has to do with the fact that according to the CDC, the NIH, and the FDA, the Comirnaty vaccine, which is the one that has been approved by the FDA for use, is legally distinct. That's what the FDA filing documents say, that it is legally distinct from the Pfizer vaccine. Here's why that matters and why it's a problem. There is no Comirnaty vaccine yet available. It isn't being manufactured yet, and it is not being made available to my clients or myself as military members. This is significant. You have the Department of Defense and the Pentagon who has said in a memo that they think the vaccines are interchangeable, therefore this is a lawful order. That's going to be challenged in court. That has not been resolved yet, but it is not a simple or small thing to say that the military is ignoring federal statutes which prevent the Pentagon from ordering our military members to receive an experimental vaccine. So unless or until it can be proven in court that the Comirnaty vaccine, the one that's actually approved, is available for military members, you're going to see myself and other military members continue to bring legal challenges against this order. Now, the other thing that's happening when we step away from just the straight illegality of these orders and our concern that these are unlawful orders, we have the issue of the unjust treatment of military members. And what do I mean? I'm talking about religious discrimination, military members being fired from their positions, being removed from command positions, being told they cannot fly, being removed from their jobs like Lieutenant Colonel Brandy King, an Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, a female pilot who was hired as the chief of rated diversity for the Air Force. And when she told her leadership that she was going to submit a religious accommodation request, they fired her by canceling her orders. Now I'm going to put a link to Lieutenant Colonel King's story. It was featured on Just the News. I'm going to put it in the comments so you can check it out for yourself and see the documents in the timeline for yourself. In addition to that, we're seeing other aspects of the military double down on coercion and threats to try to force military members to give up their legal and constitutional rights to file religious accommodation requests as well as medical exemption requests. Here's just one example. The Arizona National Guard is threatening to involuntarily vaccinate their Guard members. What do I mean? There's a provision in the Army regulation that allows the Army, under certain circumstances, to forcibly vaccinate their soldiers. That's right. In the United States of America, there is a provision in Army regulations that could allow the Army to physically restrain and forcibly vaccinate their soldiers. I have seen the memo, and I will provide a link in the comment section of this, where the Arizona National Guard is forcing its Guard members to acknowledge that possibility, to acknowledge the possibility that they may be forcibly vaccinated. The injustice doesn't end there. The unfair treatment doesn't end there. Here's what we're seeing. As an attorney representing over 40 military members, including more than 24 Navy SEALs, I've been interviewing military medical providers, military doctors, flight surgeons, and others. And here's what I've learned. I have learned that the military is denying reasonable and appropriate medical exemptions. Our United States military is telling military members and their primary care physicians that they're wrong. That just because they've had a heart attack, just because they have myocarditis, just because they are pregnant or are breastfeeding, they will not receive an exemption to this vaccine, even though there's been no long-term safety data or studies on these vaccines, period. And even though there is no reason and there's no studies that show it's safe for pregnant women, nursing mothers, or anyone with a history of clotting disorders or someone who's suffering from myocarditis. Now, that may not seem like a big deal. You may say, okay, the military is issuing a policy. They want everyone vaccinated. They're not granting medical exemptions. The only medical exemptions they're granting, though, are as if someone receives an mRNA vaccine and has a negative reaction to it. In other words, you have to receive the first shot. And if you have a severe enough reaction, it's possible the military will grant an exception. But what's worse is we are seeing a kind of medical tyranny within the military, because military doctors, military medical providers are having their credentials, that is their very license to practice medicine, threatened by the military if they attempt to approve a medical exemption or route a medical exemption for one of the military members they serve. It's their patient. So you may be watching this video and wondering, what can I do? How can I help? I can tell you right now, you can help. The first thing you can do is go to standwithwarriors.org. That's standwithwarriors.org. There'll be a link in the comments. That's a nonprofit organization started by pastors for the benefit of Navy SEALs and others, so their stories can be told and their legal battles can be paid for. Stand with Warriors is a nonprofit that is serving as a rallying point for thousands of military members to get them information and encourage them to stand strong for their faith and for their foundational beliefs in the United States Constitution. We're asking the American people to join us. Christians, we're asking you to join us in standing up for religious freedom and fundamental God-given constitutional rights. Go to Stand with Warriors. Check out the information that we have there and contact your congressional representatives and your senators. And call your state governors. Call the governor's office and ask them to take a stand for the National Guard members in their state. There are thousands of National Guard members standing with the active duty and reserve members of our armed forces who want to say no to this vaccine because of their deeply and sincerely held religious faith, as well as their desire to stand for basic principles of freedom and justice. State governors have the authority. They have control over their National Guard, and they can put a stop to these mandates for their National Guard members who were in a state status or in a state status for training. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. It matters. It matters to Navy SEALs, fighter pilots, Marines, soldiers, and members of the Coast Guard that we stand together with them and encourage them in their faith and in their fight for freedom. And I want to say this to you. As we approach Veterans Day, this Veterans Day, it's not simply enough for you to shake a veteran's hand or say thank you or buy someone in uniform a meal. If you want to make a difference this Veterans Day, then please join in this legal fight and support our veterans as they stand for faith and freedom.